My husband sent me a message from Hawaii saying, "I'm in Hawaii with my 22-year-old lover. The divorce papers are on their way, and I've already emptied our joint account of $4 million. I couldn't help but laugh and responded by sending him my bank statement, which showed a credit of $4 million, because the account he had emptied wasn't the real one. The message arrived while I was attending to clients in my boutique. "I'm leaving you and moving to Mexico City with my 21-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account." My hand didn't even tremble as I read it. My voice remained steady as I helped Mrs. Teresa choose a scarf. The only sign that my husband, the man I had been with for 13 years, had just broken up with me via text was a slight narrowing of my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Teresa left with her purchase wrapped in our traditional silver paper, and only then did I type my reply, "Good luck. My name is Carla. I'm 39 years old, and today I received the coldest goodbye of my life." But while Armando probably felt like the king of drama, thinking I'd be crying over the betrayal, I simply closed my boutique calmly for the day. The signs had been there for months, the late nights at work that didn't match his paycheck, the sudden new passwords on his phone, the way he started going to the gym every day, buying new clothes, trying to look younger. 4 months ago, I found a receipt from a fancy restaurant for 2 people on the exact night he claimed he was working overtime. That same day, I opened a new account at another bank. A week later, when he suggested pooling our money together to make things easier, I just smiled and said, "Sure." Meanwhile, I was transferring my personal savings to the new account. The joint account he had just emptied only had enough in it not to raise suspicion, about 3 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest was safe in my own account, along with a detailed file of every suspicious move he had made over the past year. My cell phone vibrated again. "Don't even think about begging. Loren and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll send someone to pick up my stuff later." Loren, the new receptionist at his office. I met her at the company's year-end party. I saw how she laughed at Armando's jokes, how she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. Young enough to be his daughter. Let her think she won the first round. Another message from Armando, "In Mexico City now. Let him enjoy the little show while he can." Another smart decision. Armando was so different back then, before the midlife crisis turned him into a walking meme. Today, he wears shirts too tight for his slightly sagging body, trying desperately to fit in with his younger colleagues at work, using slang that sounds ridiculous coming from a 46-year-old man. The phone kept vibrating, more messages, each more arrogant than the last. "I've been planning this for months. Loren understands me like you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll even find someone your age. I already told my family. They support me. We drifted apart. It's really no one's fault." I took screenshots of all the messages and saved them in my evidence folder. I let him keep talking. My lawyer is going to love this material, the confession that he planned everything, the dumb pride in having emptied our account. But it was the last message that really caught my attention. "By the way, I used our joint card to pay for our tickets and the hotel. Consider it my farewell gift." Oh, perfect. I called the bank immediately. "This is Mrs. Gutierrez. I need to report fraud and cancel a card immediately." "Of course, ma'am. Can you tell me what the charges are?" 3 first-class tickets to New York purchased today. A stay at the Royal Palm Hotel. And I also want to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have proof of the fraud?" "Yes. I have text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book a trip with his mistress after draining our account. I can forward them." The assistant maintained a professional tone, but you could hear a hint of satisfaction in her voice as she confirmed the cancellation of the charges. The next day, Armando and Loren would arrive at the airport only to find that the tickets were worthless and the hotel reservation had been cancelled. My phone vibrated again. "Don't worry about the house. You can stay there until you find a smaller place." I burst out laughing. He truly believed he had any claim to my grandmother's house. His ego had inflated so much that he forgot whose name was on the deed. "I know the store means a lot to you. We can reach a fair agreement for your part." "My part? Of my store? The one I created? The one I financed while he complained about my overtime hours and said it was just a hobby?" I poured myself a glass of wine, the one I had been saving for a special occasion. And this certainly counted. Tomorrow, Armando would receive a lesson in property law and the rules around separate assets. But tonight, I just wanted to enjoy the silence and begin planning my next chapter. The next morning, my phone started blowing up with furious messages. What the hell did you do with the card? The airline won't let us board. The hotel canceled the reservation. Answer me. I put my phone on silent and went straight to my boutique. I arrived, as always, 15 minutes before opening. I turned on the lights, started the coffee machine, opened the display windows, and took a deep breath. I was calm. Serene, even, considering that my now ex-husband thought he had left me devastated. It was amusing. He really believed I wouldn't see this coming. That I, Carla, the woman he had lived with for 13 years, would swallow it all in silence. Idiot. As soon as I prepared my coffee, I sent a short message to the one person I knew would change the course of this story, Dr. Beatriz Vasconcellos. A lawyer specialized in property law. Cold. Precise. Surgical. Her response came within 3 minutes. Bring everything this afternoon. Don't miss it. I closed the boutique early and placed in my purse the black folder I had been quietly filling for months, every screenshot, every bank statement, every suspicious note, every credit card receipt that didn't match what he claimed he was doing. I had it all. And most importantly, he had left behind the evidence of his own free will. I arrived at Dr. Beatriz's office with my head held high. She didn't smile. She didn't compliment my bravery. She simply took the folder, read in silence, and at the end, she said, "This is a massacre." I signed the power of attorney, handed everything over, and made it clear, I don't want a settlement. I want justice. And I want him to taste his own poison, drop by drop. 3 days later, Armando was officially served. Contested divorce. Allegations of infidelity, misuse of shared assets, fraud, abandonment of the home, all supported by evidence. He responded just as I expected, trying to play the victim. You're overreacting. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Loren manipulated me. I was confused. We could solve this peacefully. Peacefully? After a message in the middle of my workday saying you emptied the account and left for Hawaii with your lover? That was the moment I understood, this man had no shame, let alone character. 2 weeks later, Armando had his first real surprise. He found out that the house he said I could stay in until I found a smaller place was in my grandmother's name. And more than that, she had left it to me in her will with a clause that made it non-transferable and for my exclusive use. The second surprise came at the notary's office when he tried to challenge my ownership of the boutique. He claimed he helped, that he packed boxes, that he gave suggestions. Beatriz simply opened the records. Business registration, under my name. Lease agreement, my name. Invoices, bank records, accounting, taxes paid, everything, absolutely everything, in my name. You are not listed as a partner, sir. There is no contractual or employment relationship. But I helped, he insisted, his voice already cracking. Informal help does not constitute property rights, Mr. Armando, Beatriz replied, as sharp and dry as a blade. He lost control. He slammed the table, raised his voice, tried to accuse me of being calculating, of destroying his life out of revenge. And for the first time, I looked him straight in the eye and responded, revenge is sending a message from Hawaii saying you're with a 22-year-old girl after stealing our joint account. What I'm doing is called justice, and the best kind, with class. He stood up and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The last image I had was of him outside in the hallway, yelling into his phone, probably trying to convince someone that he was the victim. Turns out, this time no one was on his side. And I was just beginning to give back everything he tried to take from me. The most interesting part of a well-executed revenge is the desperation that comes afterward. And that's exactly what I saw, from the best seat in the house. In the days that followed, Armando couldn't bear the thought of losing control of the narrative. After all, for him it had always been more important to appear right than to actually be right. So, like the good narcissist he is, he went to the place where he feels most powerful, the internet. Suddenly, posts started popping up on Facebook with our old photos, with captions like, 13 years thrown away, and, I don't even recognize the woman I married. On Instagram, he opened a new public profile with a bio that read, Father. Man of principle. Victim of a broken heart. He only forgot to add a donation link in the bio. He began writing long, dramatic posts claiming to be emotionally betrayed, hinting that I was cold, manipulative, and had left him emotionally vulnerable enough to fall into the arms of Lorraine, the young soul who gave him attention. He shared all of this in local community groups, yes, groups, like Local Commerce, Neighbors of Santa Beatriz, and even Women's Fashion and Beauty Tips. That last one was a complete disaster, considering it was run by one of my most loyal clients. Oh, and she read the entire thing aloud in a video. She made sure to say she'd been shopping at my boutique for 8 years, that she knew my marriage inside and out, and that Armando was never good for anything except getting in the way. The video went viral. Others began to comment. Customers started posting photos of themselves shopping at the boutique with captions like, supporting strong women, or, shop with someone who had the courage to start over. My store began receiving more messages than ever before, appointments, compliments, orders, and I didn't need to say a single word. Armando's sandcastle started to collapse. Lorraine, who at first seemed so delighted with the worldly older man, quickly began to feel the weight of public shame. She was exposed in the comments, identified in the screenshots, criticized by co-workers, and then, she literally disappeared. One day, Armando posted a photo of himself alone with the caption, starting over. That same day, his Instagram profile was deleted. Sources, and by sources I mean a friend who works at the same company, told me that Lorraine requested a transfer to another department and blocked Armando on everything. He was left without his lover, without his reputation, and worse, without money. His cards began to be declined. He tried to fill up his gas tank, debit denied. He tried to have lunch at a restaurant and had to leave his cell phone as collateral while he ran to the nearest bank. Of course, he didn't know that all the joint accounts and authorized access had been deactivated. Beatriz handled that personally. And all the new passwords were secure. He sent me furious messages, you left me with nothing. This is financial abuse. You'll pay for every humiliation. I read them. Took a deep breath. And replied with a single sentence, what's yours is safe. What's mine, you don't touch anymore. He vanished for a few days, and I thought maybe he had learned his lesson. But Armando is the kind of man who prefers shame over dignity. And the shame was only just beginning. Then came the day of the hearing. I woke up early, calmly. I gave myself the time to prepare my own breakfast in silence, with the playlist I liked and no one complaining that the smell of my coffee was too strong, like Armando used to every single morning, as if the smell were the problem and not him. I chose my outfit with the same care someone would use when putting on armor. A white blazer, a satin blouse underneath, and my grandmother's bracelet, the only thing inherited from her, besides the house and the strength. I arrived at the courthouse 15 minutes early, accompanied by Dr. Beatriz, who carried the document folder like someone holding the sword of justice. My posture was calm, my expression steady. No heavy makeup. Nothing flashy. Just the image of a woman who knew exactly who she was and had nothing to hide. Across the hall, there he was. Armando. In a dark, ill-fitting suit, deep circles under his eyes, and a lost look. He looked thinner, more worn, more ridiculous. He had the defeated air of someone who realized, far too late, that he lost a war he himself had started. He tried to stare at me. I smiled politely and nodded with a slight gesture. He lowered his eyes. The courtroom was full. Some of my friends had made sure to be present. 2 former clients, who had also gone through similar divorces, came as character witnesses. And of course, he brought 2 friends from the bar. As if that held any legal weight. The judge was a mature man with a tired, objective expression. He wasn't there for a show or for drama, and I was exactly prepared for that. Armando began to speak. He played the victim, forced himself to cry, said I was cold, that the marriage had been dead for a long time, that I emotionally neglected him, and that he had fallen into temptation out of need. A pathetic, empty narrative, just like the ones he posted on social media. But what he didn't expect was that every single allegation would be dismantled, point by point, with evidence. When Beatriz opened the folder and began to show the screenshots, statements, receipts, bank records, and the messages where he admitted to planning everything with his lover, the room fell into absolute silence. We demonstrated that the joint account had been deliberately drained. We showed that he used the card after abandoning the home, that he tried to fake good faith after already staging the whole scheme. And the judge interrupted his defense with a comment I still treasure to this day. Mr. Armando, you were not the victim of emotional coldness. You were the author of a clear plan of betrayal, fraud, and an attempt at asset misappropriation. And that has consequences. When the verdict was read, my shoulders relaxed for the first time in months. Divorce granted, with fault assigned to him. No rights to the house. No rights to the store. Compensation for emotional damages and misuse of assets. Spousal support for the duration of the marriage. Legal costs, all at his expense. I walked out of the courtroom with my head held high. Outside, people applauded me, literally. My friends, clients, some women I didn't even know but who knew the story, had gathered in the hallway and clapped as if I had won a collective battle. And in a way, I had. Armando came out a few minutes later, alone, with short steps, eyes on the floor. The local press wasn't there, but I swear if someone had taken a photo, it would have been the front page with the headline, "Here lies the pride of a coward." I got into Dr. Beatriz's car and let out such a deep sigh that even she smiled. "Is it over?" I asked. She shrugged, professional as always, legally, yes. But the humiliation, that's only just beginning for him. And I was officially free. With time, my life came together in a way I could never have imagined, not even on my best days. The boutique grew. I partnered with local designers. We launched our own line of accessories. I was invited to give a lecture on women's entrepreneurship at a university. All of this while the word Armando gradually lost any weight in my memory. Until that day at the mall. I had gone to buy a birthday gift for my neighbor's daughter. I walked into one of those small men's clothing stores, barely looking at the name, and came face to face with him. Armando. Behind the counter, with a name tag hanging from his chest, a poorly ironed dress shirt, and a gaze so dim it took him a few seconds to recognize me. When he did, he froze. For a moment, I thought he would pretend not to see me. But Armando never knew how to lose with dignity, so he gave an awkward smile and said, "Carla." I looked at him the way one looks at a shadow from the past. "Armando." "What a surprise," I replied in a neutral tone, almost sympathetic. "Almost." "You look good," he said, as if asking for permission to keep talking. "I'm great. And you? Working here?" I asked. He nodded, clearly embarrassed. "Yeah. I'm trying to start over. Things haven't been easy, after everything." I feigned empathy, moved a hanger randomly, just to avoid making eye contact for too long. "It's good that you're trying, Armando. Starting over is important. Everyone deserves a second chance, for themselves, right?" I said with a delicate smile that hid the blade behind the words. He seemed to swallow hard. I wanted to apologize. Really. I was an idiot. A complete jerk. I lost myself. "I know," I answered. Just like that, without embellishment. "I doubt it. I don't expect anything, but if one day you want to talk, have a coffee." I let out a small laugh, not sarcastic, just tired. "Armando," I said, "you still think we're a misplaced comma that can be edited. But we were a closed chapter. And frankly, a shameful one at that." He went quiet. The store was empty. The air conditioning hummed with an uncomfortable buzz. For a moment, I even felt sorry for him, but it was fleeting. Because when you survive an emotional earthquake, the last thing you feel when you revisit the epicenter is nostalgia. "I forgive you," I said, looking him in the eyes. "Truly. Because holding a grudge would mean still carrying you with me. But forget? No. You're a constant reminder of everything I overcame. And honestly, I'm grateful for that." He tried to muster a reaction, but didn't have the strength. He just nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Good luck, Armando. I hope someday you can look back and feel a little shame for what you did. I walked out of the store without buying anything. Outside, the world kept moving. People laughed. Storefronts gleamed. And my phone buzzed with a new order from the boutique. I smiled, adjusted the strap of my bag on my shoulder, and kept walking, without looking back. Because honestly, those who live in the past belong in a museum. And Armando, well, he was just a dusty exhibit I no longer visited. Life has a wonderfully ironic way of rewarding those who don't seek revenge with rage, but with results. Months after that pathetic encounter, my boutique was no longer just a charming little shop in the city center. It had become a reference. We expanded. Opened a second location in an upscale neighborhood. And I created my own line of scarves, printed with empowerment quotes. One of them went viral. It read, "You didn't break me. You set me free." I started receiving invitations to events, fairs, interviews. Women from various cities wanted to hear my story. And I told it, without naming names. How I started from zero after financial and emotional betrayal. How I turned pain into profit, anger into strategy, and humiliation into strength. In one of these live interviews, someone asked, "Do you regret anything?" I smiled, took a deep breath, and said, "Only that I didn't believe in myself sooner." The audience applauded. The video reached more than 2 million views in just a few days. I was invited to give talks about women's financial independence at universities, cultural centers, and on television programs. Meanwhile, Armando, well, reliable and discreetly well-informed sources told me he was evicted from the apartment he'd been living in for non-payment. The car he used to maintain his image was repossessed due to unpaid debt. The dramatic messages he used to send were replaced by silence. No more apologies. No more attacks. I think he finally understood that whoever digs their own hole eventually drowns in what they built. And I was living the best phase of my life. On the night of my 40th birthday, I sat with my closest friends in an elegant restaurant overlooking the city I had reclaimed with my own hands. We laughed loudly and without guilt, each of us with a glass of sparkling wine in hand, celebrating not just my story, but all the women who managed to rise, even when someone tried to bury them at the bottom of a pit. One of them raised her glass and said, "We should toast to well-executed revenge." But I corrected her, "No. Let's toast to freedom. Because revenge is temporary, but being free, that's priceless." We toasted. We laughed. And I closed my eyes for a moment. There was no more pain. No more fear. Just an entire future ahead. And this time, it was all mine. Did you like the story? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel to support, and we'll see you next time.